I've been doing some thinking for the last couple of weeks while I've been doing all the pointing work, looking back at some comments I've gotten in the past, and I often get how much did you pay for the property? And it got me thinking, why not do a video where I try to explain the whole process of renovations and how much did it cost. But I also think I want to go a little bit further back and try to explain why we're here and why we're doing all this. And it all started like 3-4 years ago. Me and my now wife lived in the second largest city in Aarhus in Denmark. Yeah, I was just finishing my higher education, and I actually just took a job at a warehouse where I had worked part-time with next to my education, because I didn't really know what to do. I really always wanted to work for myself. So I was saying to myself, I'm gonna take this warehouse job and then I'm gonna do some thinking while doing it and having an income while doing my thinking, and I can work on my ideas after work and sort of plan out what I'm gonna do. So I did manage to do a lot of thinking, but I didn't manage to do a lot of work after I got home, because I always told myself, you deserve to lay on the sofa and you don't have to, and I was just exhausted. Even though it's only 40 hours, I work a lot more now, but it doesn't really feel like work when you're very passionate about it. But I was sort of living in quiet desperation, I think, where I wanted to shout from the rooftop and actually do something, but I didn't have the energy or the motivation to do it. In the meantime, we both of us got a feeling that we wanted to get closer to nature. So we actually started looking at what you'd call a community garden. I don't know if it's a thing in other places than Denmark. It's just we didn't really see many we liked until the end of the second year, where we saw the perfect one. It was ridiculously expensive for a community garden, but it was worth it because it was practically a small house, a tiny house, not even a tiny house, a bigger house. It was 50 square meters built on one of the biggest gardens in the sort of hub of community gardens. And we were just head over heels, and we just wanted it so badly. And we felt good because at that point we had a pretty low number on the list. We didn't get it, unfortunately, and we were just bummed out for the rest of the day. I remember it was a weekend day. And over dinner, as I recall it, we just said to each other, let's move to Italy. And we decided back then, I think it was October 2021, and we decided we're gonna move to Italy. And then said it to our friends and family, and I don't know if everybody believed us, but we knew we were gonna do it. And the next couple of vacations we took, we of course took them to Italy to look at properties, and we just said to ourselves, it has to be in Tuscany, because I don't know why, but Tuscany is it's obviously is one of the most known regions of Italy in the world, but Tuscany is also, for me, it's just the soft hills with all the olive trees and the vineyards and the historical cities like Florence and Pisa. And so we knew Tuscany, and we looked at a lot of properties online, and especially one caught my eye, because in the beginning the dream was to start a bed and breakfast so we can invite guests and really make a nice place where you could really ultimately relax and sort of experience the amazing Italian culture. And we would help foreigners who's not fluent in Italian get the super authentic Italian experience where we would sort of help them have that. But we saw this very cool house in southern Tuscany. Some hours, I think, near Siena it was, and a little city called Sartiano, and it was amazing. It was just ready to open as a bed and breakfast. Had been renovated in the 1980s, I think, but it was 1 million euros, so I don't know what I was thinking. I've always been sort of mad, but it had this natural fountain back from Roman times. It was ridiculous, and its own, it had 300 olive trees, but especially 5 older ones, which the guy taking care of the land, he said that they've survived quite a lot of the hard frosts, because sometimes, I don't know if I don't know the time intervals here in Italy, but sometimes you get some very, very tough frost, and a lot of olive trees dies off, but they always sprout again from the roots. But these 5, they survived, and I took so many photos of these 3 trees, and I was just head over heels from this place. And it practically had 6 bedrooms with their own bathroom, so you could open it. But coming back home and talking to real estate agents and banks, it's not possible at all, because and I've always been taught that it's not smart to indebt yourself too much, because then you're forced to work. So obviously that didn't happen, and as me and my wife talk back and forth, my wife Stine she likes to plan things, and I like to just do and execute and not think so much about stuff before I do it. So that's probably why we're such a good couple, because we have sort of, I like to throw myself into things, and she likes to plan them a little better. But as she rightly put, she would like to feel the place before we would buy it. So that's why we started searching for rental places, and we had quite a lot of difficulty finding a place to rent in Italy. It's easy enough in the big cities, but once you get to the countryside, it's always summer vacation homes, which means you can't get on a regular contract. You can only rent it long term during the winter. So, and we knew we were gonna want to register a car. So in Italy you can't register a car if you don't have a permanent residency, which you can't have if it's on a tourist contract, like we would have if we rented one of those vacation homes. We just said yes to the first owner that wanted to rent it out on a regular contract, so we could get a car. In my opinion, you need a car when you live here. So we said yes, and fate would be that it's 50 meters from here where I'm sitting now, and we firstly signed up for like half a year, I think, and slowly as the time went on, trying to become part of the community, like getting the permanent residency, which is pretty easy when you're from another European country. During the first half year, we just, oh man, we really liked the place and felt at home. Originally we planned to still, even though we selected a place to live, we would still go see the rest of Tuscany and see if we wanted another place. But living here for the first half year and then extending for another half year in the rental place, we just really fell for this place, the weekly market and the people and all the nature. And it's a bit of an untouched pearl here in Italy. Here in Tuscany there's not too many tourists, but that is kind of changing. It's getting more and more, and we decided to start looking here, and it's the same story again. When you look at Idealista, which is sort of the big website for looking at houses here, it's a lot of private sellers, and the pictures, they are never good. So the only thing left to do is to go out and see the places and really experience them, hike around the properties. And we saw a lot of properties which had a lot of potential, but a lot of them, they had all the land we wanted. They had olive groves and all that, but the problem was that with many of the places, it's also, like, I don't want to say always, but most of the time it's all sorts of land plots all over. And we wanted a place where you'd go outside your door and you'd be on your property. And then we went with a real estate agent and saw a lot of properties, but in the end we found one we really liked. Too expensive, but it was sort of on a hill, and it was a gigantic house. I think it was 450 square meters, and you had 2 small ruins on the property as well, which you could turn into tiny houses, and we thought we could rent it out, or maybe renovate one of the smaller ones and live there while we renovated the big part. But the main thing being that it needed a lot. You could live in it, but the roof was not so good, and a big project. It were like, one of the things is that it's tough doing a renovation when you actually live in it. So you'd have to live in a tent or actually live in it, and it would be a big job. As I've said in the past, I wouldn't feel confident doing the roof myself, and it was, on the lowest point, it was 4 meters above ground, so you need a lot of scaffolding, and the bigger the roof is, the more costly it is. But the house was amazing. It had the basement was these arches, just like a very old church. It was amazing inside. It was and all the old tools for pressing grapes and doing the olives were still down there, and you could make the coolest basement. I like the self-supporting arches that maybe it was an old church or something, but it was perfect. It was like 3 hectares of a hill with all sorts of cool trees, and of course olive trees, some cool cypress trees on the top, and all the land was connected. There was this old terrace with century-old tiles, the old big stone tiles, that you can make amazing views, but it was way too expensive. I think the asking price was 220,000 euros, and that was way too much. And so I think we offered them 90,000 euros, and we didn't hear back at all. And then, like, after a month of waiting, we gave them an ultimatum: take this offer or we'll find something else. And we never really heard back, so that was probably a blessing in disguise. Then we had to start looking elsewhere, and we were conflicted, because a lot of cool houses, but then it didn't get all the sun during winter, and then there's a lot of problems with all the other properties we saw, and especially the problem when you don't walk inside your own garden was a big thing for us. And then one day, the former owner of the house we currently live in now said, why don't you buy this house? And we're like, we hadn't thought of that. We had seen it, I think we had seen it on Idealista, but we never thought of the idea of buying it, because we always told ourselves we want more than 300 square meters. But again, then you'd end up in the problem like the other house down the street, where it's too big of a project. So we started liking the idea. Going around here in the garden, everything was overgrown, and just like, you have the view down the valley, down to the city, and you have up versus the mountain. It was like, this is very nice, and we really started liking it, and had some good talks about it, and in the end ended up saying, yeah, let's make an offer. I think we offered 150,000 euros for the place, and we went back and forth. The asking price was from the beginning was also 220, but they in the meantime had put it down to 200,000. So we all offered 150, and we went a bit back and forth and ended up at 167,500 euros. And notary was 5,800, and real estate agent one was 2,200 euros, and Geometra is 5,500 so far. You still need the closing of the project when I'm done, and then the building permits and the changing from grass stable to living quarters at the commune was 3,500 euros, and then other taxes expenses was 1,000 euros, I think, maybe a little bit more. Can seem a bit expensive, but the thing we liked about it is that we have 20 hectares of land, but only one is connected to the house. There's a lot further down here versus the river, which I've finally gone exploring, and there's a little more olive grove down there, and then there's up this mountain we have also some hectares, and again on the other side of the river down here. It's all spread across, but I the other day found out that there actually is a service where you can walk around on the map and see what you own. So I've been doing that. It's so fun to see what we actually bought. I haven't even seen, I think I've seen one fourth of the land we own, so a lot more to explore there. So this is practically a map of parts of the area we live in. So everything that's marked with yellow is our land. This right here is the land that's connected to the house, and all this is towards the river. I think I'll go down here today and see. This is a close-up of the city. This is practically the city again. This is where we live. The two grass stables, and here the land going around the city.
Wild hogs. Okay, I don't want to get between the mother and the kids.
So this is an entrance to some of our land, I guess. Even though I can see there's an old fence here. It makes sense because the previous owners had sheep, which would keep the olive grove clean, so it wouldn't have to cut grass. That might be a good idea for me in the future. But I can see when I step in here, it says I'm in land plot 309, which is mine. Let it be. Okay, so now I'm officially in another plot, 314. There doesn't seem to be any olive trees in this one. I guess it was just an open patch to have the cows or something. Let's go into the big one, 315. There has to be something else there. I really thought this 315 was going to be a big olive grove, but unfortunately it's just forest at the moment. But I'm only on the edge of it, so maybe if I go a bit further, but it seems to be just bush. So this is officially the middle of the big plot 315. So this hasn't been an olive grove. There would have been signs, old dead trees and stuff, and previous owners told me in the past that it's like 10 years ago when they stopped taking care of the land. So there should be a lot of olive trees still alive if this was the olive grove. But this is super exciting to see what we actually bought. I can't believe that I didn't research a little better and found that online map before. It's very exciting, this. Wild thyme. The connection is really bad here, but this says it's 318, which is still ours. Nice little plateau. The river is just down here, but I don't think there's as much olive grove as I thought. I've been saying we had 300 olive trees, but now I am starting to think it's more like 100, but you don't have time to harvest them all anyways. But it has definitely been an old statement, unless there's somewhere else. This is land plot 320, the one that edges to the river. This is a very cool place. Imagine if you could get the permission to put up a shelter. That would really be this would really be a cool spot to have to sleep out in nature. Apart from you have the waterworks over here that makes electricity from the river. But other than that, well, it's an alright building to look at. It would have been good for me to spend a little more time on budgeting and thinking and planning the decisions before I make them, because the budget on all our projects here looked pretty good in the beginning, but what I haven't thought too much about is the cost of living, and yeah, you have to spend money along the way, and renovations, they always go a little bit over budget. That's quite normal. And we unexpectedly found out that it's very costly when the building you're renovating isn't registered as living space before you start. You have to get a whole different building permit before you can start renovating those. So what I'm just trying to say is that we are running a little bit out of money, but I have asked my father for a loan to finish the building, and I can hopefully do that before the end of the year. And if I haven't started making better money on YouTube or something before the end of the year, I would like to start paying him back. Then I'll have to go back to part-time on YouTube and do something on the side, which you shouldn't feel bad for me or anything, but I really enjoy this. I just wake up every day and I enjoy the hard work, using my hands, throwing myself at all these new building projects, like learning as I go. It's a great experience, and it's everything I've longed for. I think I found here, like another purpose, growing my own food, and I'm not living that much in this sort of quiet desperation as I did at my warehouse job. So it's amazing, and I guess you could do that part-time, and it's my own fault. I could have done some better budgeting, or we could have found a smaller project, but I still hope I can sort of make it here on YouTube before. And yeah, I just like to say also that your support means a lot to me. All your wonderful comments, it's really been amazing to see the amount of support so 3,800 subscribers can actually give, and motivation. So thanks for giving me that. It's been some wonderful 2 years without, I don't know what I would call it, some kind of early pension. I'm very thankful for these 2 years, and I still have till the end of the year to work and finish the house properly, and thereafter we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll figure something out. And going to work 2-3 times a week, I wouldn't mind. It's fun using my hands, but obviously it's what I found out here is that it's more fun to work for yourself. That was also the dream, and now I've tried it. There's nobody out there saying that your first ever project is gonna be a great success, and I can say I tried now. And I still have more than a half a year left to finish the house, and then I'll start paying my father his hard-earned money back. He deserves a nice pension. That being said, not much else to say then. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys following along our life here in our little Italian farm, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.